You're listening to the 2019 Nelson Arts Festival Page and Blackmore Pukapuka Talks. This session features Renée and Becky Manawatu in conversation with McCallum. Good afternoon. Welcome back again, or welcome for the first time, if you're the first time here, to Page and Blackmore Pukapuka Talks. Big thank you to Page and Blackmore for being the principal sponsor of this 4-day literary extravaganza, which has been really wonderful. It's my great pleasure now in a moment, I'll just do some housekeeping first, that's right. Could you please check your phones and make sure they're on silent or switched off? And we are recording for a podcast, so when we get to question time, we've got this roving mic we'll hand around, and if you can talk as close as you can to it without actually licking it, that would be great. And of course, there's copies, hot off the press, of the wild card here. When did it arrive in the country, Mary?
No, we print in New Zealand.
Oh, you print in them. Very good. Yeah, so they're very, very recently arrived, and also of OA here. And there's a lovely story about the connection between these two books, which I'll hand over to Mary to tell you about now. So please join me in welcoming Mary McCallum, who's chairing this session and who will introduce you to our two authors. Thank you.
Kia ora tātou, everybody. Welcome. Haere mai Becky Manawatu and Renée. Thank you to Page and Blackmore and Pukapuka Talks for having or hosting the three of us here. It's very exciting. I'm a publisher of both these amazing women, and so it meant a lot to me to be able to present their work to you today. It's been a wonderful festival. Thank you, Kerry, too, for all your work you've done on that. She's hiding behind the curtain, as she often does, but I hope she heard that. So I'll introduce my authors, and then we're going to begin a conversation, and they'll also got hopefully some questions for each other, and at the end we'll have some questions from you, so do save them up. So I'll start with our rangatira. Renée Ngāti Kahungunu is one of Aotearoa's writing rangatira, for sure. She celebrated turning 90 this year by publishing her first crime novel, The Wild Card.
Thank you.
As you do. She's been awarded the Prime Minister's Award for Literary Achievement and the Playmarket Award for her contribution to theatre in this country. She's published a best-selling memoir, These Two Hands, which was talked about a bit yesterday at the Thinking Brunch, if you came to that. And she's also published 8 other novels and over 20 plays. Amazing. She lives in Otaki, but has strong connections with Wairoa, where she lived for many years, and she has a granddaughter living in Nelson. Is that right? Yes, good. There's a connection right there.
Well, she lives in Ward.
Oh, okay. Near. Becky Manawatu Ngaitahu was born in Nelson in 1982. Yeah, in Nelson, note. Over 30 years after Renée, note. She was raised in Waimangaroa, though, on the west coast, and has returned there to live with her family, where she works as a reporter for the news in Westport. Now, Becky's had a story longlisted for the Commonwealth Short Story Prize, a prestigious prize, and an essay selected for the Landfall anthology, Strong Words, yeah, which is out, is that?
I think it's just been printed as well.
Just being printed as well. Awe, which you can see here, is her first novel, which is such an achievement, I can't tell you. Those writers amongst you will know. It is her first novel. So we have a 9th novel and a first novel. We have a number of years between these two women, and yet they are connected. So let's go back a step. I own 2 presses, Mākaro Press, the Cuba Press. Don't ask me why, I won't go into that. 3 years ago, a young woman turned up at my office with a hangover and a manuscript, clutching it to her. She'd submitted it. No, this was the first time. Did we decide that?
Yeah.
We started trying to remember the story. This is the first time I'd seen her or her manuscript, and I was a bit like, most people kind of email it, but fine. Since you're in town and you've got up your courage the night before, clearly, give it to me. Give it to me, and let's see where we go from there. Hard copy and all, that's fine. I read it. It was very impressive. Some wonderful things about it, but there were some problem areas. I was really busy. Still a newish press. And I said to her, look, so much is great, but can you do some more work on it in these areas? And I gave you quite comprehensive feedback, I think. Becky was a little flattened by that, naturally, but she came back. She rallied. She says, I can do it. So I don't know how long later, like a number of months, I got back manuscript by email this time. She didn't arrive at my door, clutching in the manuscript. So the email, it came back by email. By then I was really busy. I was in the thick of things. I had a lot going on. I was a bit anxious about having to assess it, and she'd done all that work and sent it back. I'd been working with Renée on her memoir, These Two Hands. I knew she did manuscript and assessments. I knew she'd be amazing in telling me whether it worked or not. So I sent it to Renée, long and short of it. Renée read it. She loved it. She said she couldn't stop reading. We've got that on the cover. And the rest is history. Becky, can you tell me how that felt when I emailed you to say, Renée tells me I have to take it?
First of all, I read Renée's, your beautiful letter that went with that.
Oh.
Well, it's not a letter, but to me it's now a letter. It's something that I'll print and keep in forever because it was just so thoughtful. And I was then absolutely elated and my childhood dream was coming true then because of you who...
No, because of the work. It was the work, yeah.
Thank you. I was just very emotional and very excited. But I wanted to... Okay, can we just get it published right now then?
So that wasn't going to happen. But anyway, this was right. So she thought, so I remember you being really excited and you was like, Renée said that. Yes, and I was like, I believe, I trust. I'd skimmed through it, obviously, and I felt like the problems had been kind of addressed and we could go from here. So Renée, can you remember what your response was?
What I liked about it was the authenticity of it. There's some beautiful, beautiful stuff with a little boy, but funny as well, which is a great mixture, isn't it, in a story set in New Zealand. And also the kind of unflinching things in it that didn't turn me off because they're written so well. And I think just the way it held me from the beginning, I really wanted to know what happened. And quite often that doesn't, when I'm looking at scripts, reading scripts and that kind of thing, it's kind of the last third that often lets you down a bit as a reader, but this one didn't. It just held right to the end, and so I said, take it.
Thank you.
However, I did say at a later date, I don't like the title.
Oh,
and I didn't, and so they came up with another one.
Yeah, that was interesting. After. So, a couple of years' work. You'd waited till I could get to work on the novel because I can only do so many novels at one time. Very small press, and then we'd been working on it with this other title, Pluck. Okay, we'll tell you it was Pluck, and then it can be a lot of things. We thought it meant one thing. It meant a lot of things inside the novel. We thought it applied well, but I must say it was something I hadn't really felt I'd addressed exactly. But we'd lived with it long enough. It's a bit like a child. You call them a name, and they start to be that. So there was this novel, Pluck. That was it in our mind. And then I saw Renée. We went to a play one night in Wellington, and afterwards she sat there very seriously and said, "It's got the wrong title. You have to change it." And I just imagine Becky's response to that.
I'd taken up a few hobbies actually to deal with my constant waiting. So I was rowing. I was out for a rowing session.
That's right.
It was my second time rowing, and I haven't actually been back since because now I have
bad memory.
I had editing to do, so it was just a wee hobby that I took up. And you texted me as I was about to go out on the boat and said, "So I need to talk to you," and. And I had all sorts of
visions.
Thoughts. Yeah.
But that's Becky. Becky gets visions and thoughts.
Yeah,
I need to talk to her. But the thing is, the Pluck thing, you didn't like it. Why?
It was too English. Just too English. It's not a word that is common here anyway, but because the book is what it is, I didn't think it reflected that.
No.
And you know, and I still think that. I still think it was, you know, like I know I was right. Well, of course.
I remember, do you remember if anyone was at the brunch yesterday? Do you remember Renée was told Renée is right? And she went, I like that, I remember that. So, yeah, you were right, okay. Because the thing is, I guess Renée was thinking plucky, the plucky boy. And this is not that kind of novel. This is a very Māori novel. It's strongly that way. Renée's absolutely right. And it sort of turned everything on its head for us, didn't it? We suddenly thought, yeah, that is so true. We were working at a certain level, dealing with the story, the narration, the plot, obviously are the characters. But you know what? There was like this whole hidden layer. Not hidden. It was a layer that we weren't really addressing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, then it meant we went back into the book and made some major changes.
Yeah, and there was some really beautiful mahi done from that title change that I can't imagine the book being without now. So...
There was we brought in more te reo. The characters' names changed. The grandparents became...
They became themselves.
Koro,
and they were not quite...
It was like they all came out and said, yeah, hey, look at us. We're actually really important in this. It was a stunning and amazing. Becky could do that. We weren't far off sending it to the printer. And we did that. We changed it and it was amazing. And so it feels like this collaboration, really, in a really lovely way. And I love collaboration. That's why I like publishing books. So I guess the thing is, between these two novels, Renée's a crime novel. Becky's has got crimes in it, but you wouldn't call it a crime novel. But they've both got so much otherwise in common. So both have Māori protagonists and are packed with Māori characters. They're both set in rural, small-town settings. In Renée's case, it's Porohiwi, which is a mix of Wairoa and Otaki. And in the case...
Don't tell anyone.
Oh, yeah, actually, you tell them in the back of the book.
Yes, I tell them on the back of the book. But who reads the back of the book?
Oh, yeah, I reckon. And Becky's is set in Kaikoura, Cheviot, around there, and both touch on Wellington, which I quite like. You both have children facing difficulties in your books, and both books have got a sort of social justice theme sitting there squarely inside. Renée's Māori State Wards, the story there, which is so topical. Becky, you've got gangs, domestic violence. And both have a family. It struck me this morning when I was thinking about it. Both have families that have been disrupted, if not destroyed, by events, if you think about it, just like the severing. And that really amazing thing about Becky's cover, these beautiful tui on the cover there by Penny Howard, who's an Auckland artist. And did you know the red thread through them, what it means? It's the bloodline between families. That's what it is.
That's very cool.
It's about the generations. I was talking to someone yesterday about that. So, so that's... I would love you to talk about that a bit, Becky, with yours. You've got all these generations in the book. You've got little Arama or Ari, who's 8, 10. I keep forgetting.
He's 8. Yeah.
He's 8. That's right. Yeah. And his mate Beth. These two little feisty, amazing out there kids. You've got Ari's brother Toku. You've got their parents. You've got aunties, uncles, grandparents, and yet it's a family that's been broken apart, hasn't it?
Yes.
You want to talk about that?
Yes. So I started off with Arama and Tokiri were my two main characters that came to me in the beginning, and I had no idea of where the story was going to go, but I just knew that they were coming from destruction, and I wanted to see how they could survive, grow from that, and where it was going to lead them. And they were then separated, and I tried to make them seem more separate by taking each story and making it in the first person. So then they were quite separated that way.
So their mother, ostensibly at the start, we know the little boy Ari's parents have died, right?
Yes.
Drowned.
Yeah.
We don't know much more than that.
Yeah. So Arama's parents are both drowned, and Tokiri is dropping him off at his Auntie Kat's house, and he's he's off to do something, but it takes a while for us to learn really what he wants to be doing. He's got his own backstory, which is drawing him away from Arama. He would like to find out about... So Arama and Tokiri are raised as brothers, but they're not brothers. They're just brothers in a very te ao Māori way. So it's just that they're whānau, but and they're raised that way, but it's not...
And they're left with his aunt and uncle who...
Yes, so then Arama is left with an aunt and an uncle who's...
one of the horriblest characters in New Zealand fiction.
Yes, I'm very pleased to see the back of him.
He really is. Everyone who's read it so far said, I cannot stand that man, he's horrible.
And he's the only character in the book that I have very little, that I never developed any empathy for. So...
Understandably.
Yeah, I didn't. I might have given him one redeeming moment, but
fish and chips.
Yes, I have no empathy for him whatsoever. And other characters, for example, there's some pretty rough gang characters in there as well. But my empathy for them definitely developed as with every new manuscript I wrote. I think I felt differently and about those characters, and I definitely felt a sort of love for them compared to Stu. I'm just happy he's gone.
We're all happy.
I mean, gone as in I don't have to write him anymore. No spoilers there.
Yeah. No spoilers there.
Yeah.
That's great, Becky. So Renée, with you, same thing. You've got this kid. Well, she doesn't. We first meet her. She's grown. She's in her 30s, late 30s. Ruby.
Yeah.
But once upon a time, she was a baby, delivered to the Porohiwi Children's Home in a kete, just left outside. And so she's got that in her background, and it hasn't really not bothered her, but she hasn't dealt with it till now.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about that? She's sort of severed from her family, right?
She doesn't... Her... the wonderful woman who adopted her has just died and has made Ruby promise that she will look for her parents, because Ruby really couldn't care less. She doesn't think about them. She just despises the person who left her in the kete outside the door. And but once Kate dies, she accepts the responsibility, she accepts the job. At the same time, she's playing Lady Bracknell in The Importance of Being Earnest, and she's also writing the history of the Porohiwi Players, which is a theatre group that are going to celebrate 100 years. So that's why they want their history. And Ruby is what is called a ghostwriter. She writes things for other people about, they want to write about their lives, she writes it. In this case, it's a proper kind of history that she's writing. So the book is looking back at the same time as it's moving forward. And she goes to the lawyers and they give her an envelope and it's got this little notebook in it, and then she remembers when she was 7, she ran down at someone's drive. It happened to be Kate's. She ran down this drive and slept in the woodshed that night, and when Kate came out in the morning with bread for the birds, Ruby, after she'd gone inside, Ruby crept out and grabbed a bit of bread to eat because she was starving. And then Kate came out and said, "Do you like toast? Do you like eggs? Would you like to come inside?" And that's how that happened. And so Ruby kind of is not so... She's fairly active about wanting to know who her parents are, but not as much as chasing the identities of the men who played cards a long time ago and who she considers, anyway, were responsible for the death of Betty, her friend. At the home, every child who came in, all of them were Maori, and they all got given other names. It's no surprise to us as New Zealanders, because that's what happened in lots of schools as well. And so I've got these kind of threads, the theatre, And I mean, all know how much I love that. And I've been in a community theatre myself, so I know exactly what happens. I love Oscar Wilde. Truth is really pure and never simple. Like, who else but he could have said that? So I'm really pleased with the way Ruby... and Ruby, I hope you'll like her. She's very strong-minded, very opinionated. I wonder who she's like. And she swears a lot, so be prepared. But I also think she's very funny, and I wanted her to have that throwaway, cynical kind of humour, because I like reading that as well. So that's my Ruby.
She reminds me a little of someone sitting not too far away. And I'm quite interested because I got hold of Renée's first novel, which I think is really important to today's discussion, given that we've got a first novel and willy-nilly. And there's a great photo of you on the back there, Renée.
Oh, really?
With this hair going out in all directions. And what has Ruby Palmer got? Hair she cannot control.
That is true, yes.
Very interesting. So, but did you, in writing this, and I haven't asked you this question, did you want to shine a light on the issue of Māori straight boards?
Yes. I think it's a problem that hasn't been addressed at all in Aotearoa. Like, when you think of all those kids, and they come out, they were shoved out at 14, from a place where they'd been badly treated, both physically and mentally and sexually, and flung out, and a lot of them got into trouble. Of course they did. And they get the blame. No one blames the employees that worked at the state homes. And now there's a commission. And I mean, it's very, very disappointing. I don't know if any of you have followed it, but it's sort of crumbling. I mean, there's been 2 members been taken off for,
falling asleep.
Yeah, well, one was falling asleep, and the other one was, his bishopric was cancelled by the church because he had sex with a young woman. So he's off. And, it just makes you wonder how seriously we and the government are taking these attitudes. I can sort of see people being dead before they get any justice. And so Ruby feels strongly about that as well. And that's the real line of the book. But when I say to you that it's funny as well, you probably won't believe me, but it is.
Yeah, it's like that mix, really. But both of the books have that, and that you got that very serious social justice issue with a lot of humour.
But I think don't we all do that? Like we kind of tend to see the funny side of things, even when they're not really funny. Like when someone drops a coffin or something, it is a nervous laugh because we know it's not really funny, but like it is funny.
It's Renée, okay, that's Renée. But yeah, and Becky too, I've heard people describe your novel as devastating but heartwarming, those 2 things side by side, which is what makes, as Renée said when we were both reading it, it was like, that's what makes us want to publish it, what makes us want to read it, because it's got those things. Too much devastation is quite hard to read, don't we know? But if you've got also, like in the case of Becky's, you've got the life of these 2 little children living their lives very much as rural kids, hanging out in fields and doing the things kids do, some quite gross things like children do when they're on their own and allowed free rein.
Little secret things like watching Django.
Oh, that's weird too. Yeah, so she has these very dark things happening to the children. But they do just play as children play and play with animals. And particularly what's heartwarming for me is there's a dog. And I think dogs do a lot to a story. Maybe I'm just a, dog lover, therefore I think they add a lot to a story. But it is that kind of frolicking of this mad dog Lupo who's always chasing bees, which I think sort of adds to the heighten the sense of fun that the kids are having, just normal stuff, living day by day, trying to ignore what's going on at home for Ari, because his Uncle Stu that we just talked about is an abusive man. He rants and raves, he's violent, he yells, but he can still play with the dog, can't he? So, that's very true. So was it important, or how important was it for both of you that your protagonists were Māori? Can you start, Becky?
was very important to me. We're a Māori family. I don't look it. And I was raised in basically a Pākehā home, actually, but I whakapapa Māori, and my sisters would never ever let me forget that. So I could have happily ignored the fact, but my sisters would not allow that. And because they're not here, I can tell you that they're my half-sisters, but if I were to say that in front of them ever, I would be
told off,
punched.
Yeah.
Something. They would not accept that, and we've had.
You sure they're not here?
They're not. But this is on podcast, but they probably won't listen to it. I don't think. I won't tell them. Okay. But they. So I whakapapa Māori, and they were sure to tell me regularly that this is, despite your blonde hair and blue eyes, you're just you're us. And so I looked to them, and I honestly, for a long time, I thought I'd drawn the short straw. I was like, my beautiful sisters, and it was weird. And it was actually a girl at school who told me that they were not my real sisters. So I was waiting for my turn on the trampoline, because this is Waimangaroa and you can have trampolines and there's no health and safety rules about that. And I was waiting, and this girl's jumping on the trampoline like mad, and I'm like, it's my turn now. And she says, I'm just staying here longer. And then I tell her that I'm going to get my sisters, and they're going to come down here, and they're going to tell you it's my turn on the trampoline. So she just stops jumping, and she looks down at me, and she goes, "They're not even your real sisters." And I was devastated. I went home and I asked everyone to explain to me what the hell was going on. But I never saw any difference between us. I've gone off track on the question.
No, you were talking about the importance of the characters as Māori, because I feel like the book now, especially with the title change and the other work you did on it, is so powerful in that way that you're just in the midst of this family watching things happen and trying to understand them. Did you want to shine a light, like Renée's got the abuse of care issue there, Māori State Wards. Did you want to shine a light on the effect of gangs in Māori life? Did that matter to you as an issue, or was it just something that came out of story?
It's like, I think when I started out, it comes out of story, and then I do. So my sister's married to a gang member, and I haven't seen her for a very long time, and I think that it was a bit of curiosity. I'm not going to pretend that it's from some admirable place. It's just curiosity as to her life, and I asked questions of what that might look like, and she's almost become like a bit of a myth to me because I haven't seen her so long. So it's a strange situation.
You heard from her husband.
I did. I heard from her husband. So I sent my sister the book, and it's funny because this book has now become a little bit of a connection for something that we've lost a little bit. And I posted it to her, very nervous for her reaction and her husband's reaction, and he decided he would read it first. And my sister sent me a message, and she said, "So Raymond's finished the book and he wants to talk to you." And I was a little bit concerned. I was nervous, and I mean, why should I be? He's on the phone. I can hang up if I need to, but I still, despite some things I know about him, I wanted him to have enjoyed it and taken something from it, and he did. He enjoyed it. He read it in 3 days. He said he loved it so much he's gone to the Te Kuiti library and told them to get it. I think he went to the local high school too.
Oh, what?
Yeah, and said that you should get this book. And then my sister read it, and she was also, she loved it too. So
amazing.
Yeah,
Isn't it?
yeah.
And that's that thing as an author, you do start slightly feel like an imposter, don't you? When you're writing about lives you don't, well, you haven't lived, of course, and you have to, but sometimes those lives are way apart from how you've lived, and it's like, how do you do that? And you try your best and hope you've done it, and then when it's out in the world, I guess you get it's like heart failure.
Yes.
You confront someone who might know more than you.
Yeah.
But well done, Becky, if you passed that test.
I've passed that test.
Yeah, excellent. Should we have a little reading, do you think? Is Becky going to go first?
Yeah.
Did Renée answer the question as well? Because I took a little bit too long about Māori protagonists.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is that I wrote my book because I teach, I do workshops, and I had created this new workshop called How to Write a crime novel. And so it was the first day, and I had this group of people who all wanted to do it, and I suddenly thought, how am I going to know whether it's doable or not? So I thought, well, I'll write one along with them. So I did. And so I got to the end of the 10-week course, and I had this, because I make everyone write 10 pages a week or they don't come on the course. And so they do, and it's got to be to me by Wednesday, you see, so I kept to that. So by the time I got to the end of the course, I had 100 pages. And I mean, like, I'm a depression child, waste not, want not, So I decided to do another draft, make it into the crime novel, and it is a crime. And I had read, can I just say, I had read Graham Greene's advice. He said, a crime writer needs a splinter of ice in the heart, or else you can't be a crime writer. And I thought, oh, right, okay, so I've got the historic murder, but I better chuck in another one as well. And I had this old guy, this old Maori guy, he's 80, his name's Spider, and I just love him. I just adore him. And so I thought, well, that's a good sign, because you're supposed to get rid of a character that people like, aren't you? So I killed Spider, and then I spent the entire weekend thinking, I shouldn't have done that. So on the Monday morning, I kind of rolled back the stone. Stuck it back in the book. And so,
well, you think as a reader, you think he's dead, right? That's what, because I thought, oh no, she hasn't, and then So have we ruined it for them? No, not really. No. It's a side.
No, you'll love him. You'll just love him too. He's really, really.
And his partner is adorable, isn't she? As well,
Meg's his partner. Oh, she's 90. She's bad-tempered.
Have you got two of you in there?
Yeah. I have.
Bad-tempered, loves a cup of tea, swears a lot.
Yeah.
That's Meg. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just read you a little bit. The bushes were dripping from the earlier shower, so she kept to the middle of the path, which was a steep haul on this last curve up. Another smell, lavender, probably dentata, used to be the most popular and still her favourite. When she was fixing up Meg's garden, everything growing there would be accented, she decided. She'd clear anything else away and replace them with perfumed bushes, plants, or climbers. The driveway was really steep. No worries, she could catch her breath at the top. In her head, she knew this old house and ground so well. But tonight, in the dim light, it looked different. Not so big, but still a bit scary. Just don't lean on it, she told herself. She stopped by the path over the large culvert, ignored the stream glaring palely through the gloom, and stared at the back of the house. The door on the side opened into a room that used to be the laundry, and the door in the middle opened onto a passage that led to the main corridor, passing the kitchen on the way. There was a rickety fire escape ladder from the top floor to the lower one. It stopped a good human length from the ground, so you'd have to let yourself fall the last metre. God help you if you had a broken leg or were old and frail. Well, this wasn't too bad. No ghosts of matron or the balaclava man, no drowned Betty lying on the path. Why had she built up such a fear of it? It was just a place that had outlived its time. It wasn't responsible for what human beings had done inside its walls. She leaned on the door, and the house moaned like a ghost was walking the old passage. Human footsteps? Ruby listened intently. Shivery possibilities trembled in the air. Okay, time to go. She turned and stared at the shed. The door hung open a little bit, so she pushed it open a bit more. A mess of cans and bottles, some Kentucky Fried Chicken bags, even a used condom. Yucko. Must have been really drunk or really desperate. Ruby started down the other side. Her arm caught the end of a wet branch and water splashed her jeans, cold needle tips on warm skin. This light had exactly the right feel for a Swedish noir movie. The dark shapes of the bushes and trees, misty air and the sound of water dripping. Any minute, someone called Arne would step out of the bushes, throw away his cigarette and say in a thick accent, "Okay, Ruby, time to talk." The lower she went, the more she became aware of the change in light. She thought she'd like to be at home, sipping a glass of red wine and listening to an old song that Kate had liked. Sam Cooke, she thought, change is going to come. One of the bushes moved. She stopped thinking, breathed quickly, heart beating like a snare drum. An illusion caused by the wind? Hardly. This was a breeze by Purohiwi standards. First rule, don't muck about. She swerved away and now it was definite. The shadow moved too. Shit, she thought. She was 3/4 of the way down the slope. Too late to go back. What to do? Take cover, take off, take them on? The old mantra. Not much choice. She felt in her pocket. Yes, okay, phone. Turned, took up the stance. The shadow moved faster, now unworried about noise as it crashed through the bushes. He came out of the dark, a running black ghost. Thank you.
Your action scenes are just bang on. They're terrific. They just
Thank you. Thank you.
The ground running each time, and you are totally dragged through them to the end. You know, and Ruby's great because she fights back. She's one of those great women protagonists. Love her. Good on her. Would you like to read yours?
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm. So this is a chapter from Arama. He's the 8-year-old boy. We were going camping. That's what Beth said when I went to her house because my house was so quiet and Auntie Cat was nowhere around. "Hi, Ari," she said, and when I walked into the lounge. "Dad said we're going camping today. He called your auntie too. You're allowed to come. In fact, it's for the best if you do," Beth said, her eyes on the TV. That was weird. Hadn't seen Auntie Cat when I got up. Hadn't heard her. "Where's your dad?" "Sheds." On the TV, Django, Monsieur Candy and Doc were in a room sitting at a big shiny table and there were candles burning and there was a statue of a man with his naked butt out. Monsieur Candy set a skull on the table. He said it was old Ben's. Then he took out a saw, like the one Tom Aiken used to cut down our Christmas tree, only smaller, and he used it to cut the skull, and the sawing sound he made sounded like our tree being cut while we stood on lookout for Tom Aiken's old mate. And when he had the skull open, he broke off a piece of it and held it up and said he could tell old Ben was no Isaac Newton or Galileo, whoever they were, because of 3 dimples in his skull. Monsieur Candy said something I didn't quite catch. I was so busy looking at his yucky dark teeth. "Unbirded by genius," Beth whispered, repeating him, but it didn't make sense. Her eyes fixed on the TV, not blinking, mouth open. And I thought of my skull then, like a room with candles burning, and Monsieur Candy was sitting at a table sawing old Ben's skull to bits. I'm going to go home and pack then, Beth, I said. Yeah. No, that's not what he said, sorry, I'll start again. I'm going to go back home then, Beth, I said. Yeah, and pack, she said. I'm packed. Walking home on the gravel road, I felt heavy like I did all the time now. I'd thought one day my life would just get back to normal. No more Uncle Stu and Monsieur Candy and quiet mornings where I didn't know where anyone was. I was starting to get it. It wouldn't go back. It just kept running forward like a train with no driver, and people were falling off, and it didn't care. It had somewhere to get to. The heaviness really started after I dreamed Tokiri had called to tell me he wasn't coming back. And then I woke up to Auntie Cat feeling sorry for me, and my All Blacks lunchbox I'd left open on the bench like I used to for Mum so she could fill it up was broken on the floor. And Uncle Stu grabbed me and looked me in my eyes, and he threw me to the floor, and I still couldn't work out when it was I peed my pants. I told myself it was when he threw his boot, but it was probably when he was finished with me and said 3 words to Auntie Cat, the worst 3 words I've heard, and they flew into me and buried themselves in me. And where had they gone now? Were they still in my body, becoming something terrible? I wanted to tell Nanny about them, but Nanny didn't answer her phone. If Mum and Dad and Tokiri were going with me camping, I'd have my bags packed already. I'd be ready for the adventure and the big starry sky around us. But now, even with Uncle Stu sleeping down the hall and the bad dreams that were getting worse, that sometimes had men wearing white masks coming to kill me and Beth or put us in the hot box, and Monsieur Candy setting his pack of dogs on us, my bed in Auntie Cat's house was the only place I wanted to be.
It's lovely. It's lovely.
Yeah.
There are funny bits. I probably should have chose one with funny bits.
That was... What made you think of that one?
I don't know.
Oh, my goodness. So the kids are watching Django Unchained.
Yeah, I suppose
they find it. It's a DVD that's there. It just sort of shows how uncontrolled their lives are by adults. The adults aren't doing what they should do to look after them. Even the very nice Tom Aiken, really.
Yes.
He's the dad of Beth, but he's just a bit slack, isn't he?
He's very slack.
He's lovely.
Yeah.
He's what the only nice, really important adult male there
Yes,
that
yeah.
can do something, but he's just a bit...
Yeah, he's just a bit whatever. Yeah. They'll be all right.
Well, no, but isn't that like we all are a bit reluctant to kind of step in? I don't know about you, but I mean, I feel that reluctance sometimes. You know something is wrong, but it's very hard to find the words or, you know, the reason to go over and perhaps say something. And, we all understand that, don't? I mean, you know, that's sort of human, and it's that getting over that makes the difference, I guess. In the end, that's what we have to get over, and we have to do something.
I think, though, hearing those readings, I mean, it always moves me to hear authors read their work, especially a new one. And I think, you know, you just are reminded of the power of fiction, how, you know, you can get its great power, the way it can take you inside the skin of people. And I feel quite emotional hearing that, because that little boy is such a lovely character. I've had people reading it saying, no way, this kid, we've got to... But look, he rises up. I really have to tell people that to keep reading, because at the end of the book, wow, it just blows me. I've read it over and over because it's just a redemption moment. And that's also what fiction does. It can take those bad stories. It can revenge you. It can get the anger out, can't it? It can handle stuff that might be too hard to handle.
And also in the wild card, you've got the production of the importance of being earnest, and kind of most of us know a line or two from it. Most of us have seen one. It's quite a popular play with New Zealand audiences, and like Oscar Wilde, writing a society sort of mannered type of script for a particular audience in the 1890s, and it's still, like it was done in Auckland last year, it's still kind of living, and it just, as a writer and the inventor of Ruby, I just liked the idea that she was playing Lady Bracknell because she's Maori, and And the director had said to her, it doesn't matter. It's not, and I know it doesn't. It doesn't matter. You can do anything. And of course, she's a good actress and that sort of thing. And then the other thing was whether she was old enough. So she's got these little hurdles in her mind about it. Of course, she does a tremendous job.
But it's that thing with Oscar Wilde, isn't it? These pointed social comments, which are funny but pointed. Like this beginning to this book, to your book, Renée, but it could also start yours. To lose one parent, Mr. Worthing, may be regarded as a misfortune. To lose both looks like carelessness. And this one too, I love. To be born, or at any rate bred, in a handbag, whether it had handles or not, seems to me to display a contempt for the ordinary decencies of family life. And that, of course, lovely Ruby Palmer is delivered not in a handbag but a kete to the Porohiwi home. So we have handbags, and of course the little boy turns up with his backpack, and the backpack's very important in your story, isn't it? Because he keeps his plasters in there. Can you talk about those?
The plasters?
They're plasters.
Yeah. I've realised that, so Arama has an obsession with putting plasters on his body after he's lost his parents, and he's soothing himself with plasters because he finds a box in Auntie Kat's medicine cabinet. And obviously I know the feeling of having a plaster put on me by my mum. It makes you feel much better, but I have come to realise that it might have also been a redemption thing on my behalf because I wasn't a plaster mum. Like my kids would probably say,
children are
she
here.
would hardly
Did she not
ever
put
give
them
us
on you when you had cats and things? Did
not
you not
often.
Get plasters?
Not that
my
often.
God.
I was a little
That's
bit
terrible.
So I think this is my redemption.
Well, you'd have just left them to bleed, right? Yeah.
I would just say if it's not really bleeding that much, then they don't need it.
Actually, Becky, I was like that too. I remember when my kid fell over and he's bleeding all over the place, and a friend came in looking for some. We had none.
I don't think I've hardly ever bought a box of plasters.
Okay.
If they've landed in our house, it's been accidental, and we probably still have them. Occasionally I do. Don't have the Ministry of Children on me or anything, but I'm definitely not a plaster crazy mum.
It's a wonderful little element in this boy to understand what he's
The
going
other
through.
thing is that he's trying to soothe something deeper inside him, so it's just
Can we've got another quarter of an hour. We'll have some questions soon, so I hope you're building up to that point of asking one. Did you have questions for each other about your books?
What I like, one of the things I really like about it is the going from person to person's thing. I like going from the boy to the brother, and I like the way you leave the reader to make the connections a lot of the time. When you're writing, it's very easy to write everything and not leave the reader anything to do. And readers are intelligent people, and they read between the lines. So it's really important, I think, that as a writer you leave that space for readers to kind of put their own spin on it and to kind of think about things that might happen or might not happen. And I like that very much. And I like that I didn't get the answer. Like I had it in my head all the time. What's going to happen to that? What is going to happen? And it's beautifully done because I knew there would be an answer, but it doesn't come straight away. And I liked that very much. It's I'm a fan of happy endings. I want everyone
Without
to be happy.
Without giving it away. Not giving it away. Just help you read it. Yeah, that's good.
I've only just got this book, so I've been racing through it, trying to read, and I've been enjoying it so much. The name of the home, Porohiwi. So that's an ancestor of yours.
Yeah. That's from one of my ancestors. He was shot by one of his relatives overland, so he's kind of remembered by one side of us. And when I was on a road trip about a few months ago with two of my sons, we always drive round that area and stop the car and have a moment of reflection for this old man. He was old, and this time my oldest son got out of the car and took his phone and took a photograph of the place where he was shot. And so, I just wanted the name, and I knew that I could use it because it's mine, and I wanted to do a country town. Lives in country towns, you don't really find them very often in fiction, and I just wanted to show the town, the life of the town. So if the novel has human characters but also has the town, and both Otaki and Wairoa have their bad moments, like Wairoa's just having a bad one at the moment with someone shooting at the police station. But they do something. They've both got rivers, and I totally relate to river. And I love this river that you've got here that was just sort of seemed outside my hotel door. It's just so beautiful. You're so lucky. And so I just wanted... Small towns interest me, and
And then you gave it the name as a it's because it's yours.
Well, because it's mine, and I couldn't use Wairoa. I mean, I'd have been lynched, and I couldn't use Otaki for the same reason. So I thought, I'll make one up.
You, like Oscar Wilde, you make lots of little social commentary through your
that's
your
good.
work.
I would like to do that.
And one that stuck out for me, because I'm a reporter for a small press, is when you were talking about community newspapers and how important they were.
I feel very strongly about community newspapers. Yeah.
So do you have? Do you
we have
get one?
Otaki Mail, and in the book I have one called the Porohiwi Star. Wairoa has the Wairoa Star, so like any connection between that is totally imaginary.
The Star's got there's a bit of a story going on with the Star too, which is interesting.
The editor of the Star has just died, and his son has come back and is deciding whether or not he will keep the paper going, and Ruby kind of urges him to keep it going. She sees it as a community thing, and he's not sure that anybody bothers to read community papers now. And she says, you go up Main Street the day that paper comes out, you go into the cafe, everybody's heads down, they're all reading to see what's been happening. And what a community newspaper does is it shows the community to itself. And so she urges him, but we don't know really for a while whether he is going to carry it on or not.
You're managing so many characters in the...
I know, and my first... That's usually a criticism.
What did I say?
I said managing. You're managing a lot of characters.
But when we were editing it, Renee?
Yeah, I know. And when
we had to kill some off
my
before.
friend...
Just get rid of them.
Yeah.
Too many.
Not Spider. Spider lives.
Spider's there.
I'm determined. Yeah.
There are a few random jokers would pop up, and be mending the road or something, and she'd want to tell us about their love life. And I was like, Renee, you've got enough people on the go. Get rid of him. He can go. He can do that. Yeah.
But you're interested in people.
Yes, I am. And I think having worked in theatre for so many years, I'm so used to people, crowds of people being around me and not being fazed by it. But my first reader, Sarah, she reads everything of mine, poor devil, first, but she's a true friend. But she wrote back and said, too many characters, Renee, cut some.
Yeah. And I said the
Mary
same.
Sort of sang the same tune.
And now you're managing the many that are still here.
Yeah. Grudgingly, she cut some. Anyway, I think what's fascinating always is hearing how writers' preoccupations feed into their stories, isn't it? And how their own lives feed into their stories, the things they know. And it's just fascinating what they end up with, this wonderful interwoven work, which is so packed and interesting. No, you cannot ask more questions. No. This reporter next to me. No. Now it's time for these people to ask them.
Right. Yeah.
Becky, right. Okay, has anyone got a question? Yeah, front there. Yep, here we go. It's the mic.
My question is a huge question, I imagine. I'm not a writer. I am a reader. But what's your...
Yay!
Yes. What's your impulse to write?
I don't. I think when I first started writing seriously, I wrote plays, and I think that was because I knew theatre, but also because I wanted to put women centre stage instead of being somebody's mother or auntie or sister or whatever. They had a right to be centre stage, so I did that. That was one impulse. I just grew to love the work. I mean, it's heartbreaking and annoying and difficult and drives me crazy at times, but then there's the other times when you get it right. So I just get up every morning and work. So it's something, I guess, that I love, and I can't tell you exactly why, but it makes my life, it brings my life great pleasure and great annoyance, and between the two I just keep going. So that's not a very good answer, but yeah.
What about you, Becky?
I have been writing since I was a kid, and I really don't feel very good when I'm not writing at the moment. With it, I need to get on to something else, so I just have to write. I love writing, so yeah, you just driven to it without really any reason except that it makes you feel better about the world, I guess. Yeah.
And like writing, I tell my students, writing saves us. Like, for example, the first time I had cancer, they couldn't do the lumpectomy I was going to have for about 6 weeks. And so thank God I had a commission to write something, because I could get up every morning and work and not be so worried about what was going to happen or what... I mean, I needn't have worried, it was perfectly all right. But of course you do. So it saved me. And when bad things have happened, it remains. And when good things have happened, you can hardly wait to get on there, So it kind of is like... it's so much part of my life now that I just can't. My hands will have to fall from the keyboards before I stop. Yeah.
I aspire to be like you. Yeah.
As you can tell, she's on a sequel already, but you don't have to talk about that.
No, I won't talk about it.
Becky, back to the title of your book, Pluck. Did you choose that? Why did you choose it? Why did it go away? And what does our mean?
It started out, the first manuscript was actually called The 10,000 Things That Make a Nest, and Tina Makareti was my assessor. I had an assessment through the New Zealand Society of Authors, and she wrote back to me and said it was too pretty for the book because there's far too much bloodshed in this book. Metaphorical, some of it.
Yeah, metaphorical.
Yes. So then I was just trying to find another title, and there was a scene in the book where the word was used several times, and because you pluck a guitar and there's a lot of song and music in the book, so there were these reasons, and I just landed on it and I felt good about it. But I think there was several people did look at me like pluck a chicken or they didn't get quite what I was doing there, but I was so sure that I was doing the right thing. I was so pleased when afterwards, not initially, I wasn't that thrilled to. I was a wee bit taken, but afterwards I was pleased. Aware is the beauty about this word is that it means many things, just like pluck could. It's very contextual, so you could. Witi Ihemaira, for example, he uses it in Māori boy to say alas quite regularly. You could replace it with alas. It's also an exclamation of distress, and it can mean to cry, but that really needs to be put in a certain way to say that. So, yeah, that's Thank you for your question.
We've got one more minute, or shall we, unless anyone's got a pressing question? We got one there. Anybody? No, so we probably could nice and neatly wrap it up with the name Awe. So thank you everybody for listening. I've really enjoyed hearing them both talk today, even though I thought I knew about their books. I thought that I knew them inside and out. I always hear new things. So I hope you can somehow engage with these books, either buying one today, which would be just fabulous, and they will sign it for you, or through your local library, also great supporters of publishers in New Zealand. These are two books I think you need to read, so avoid them at your peril. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. That was lovely.
No, great.
I don't think I said thank you to these two, but that's what I meant. Did I?
You did.
Did I say thank you to them?
I'm pretty sure.
And of course, books wouldn't exist without publishers. So thank you very much, Mary, and Cuba and Mākaro Press for making this happen. You're listening to the 2019 Nelson Arts Festival Page and Blackmore Pukapuka Talks.